looking for something. A new way, a new understanding, a connection, some comfort. You've got questions, and Light on Living puts the spotlight on all the answers so you can shine. Lift and lighten the load of life's challenges and learn simple and easy ways to live a healthy, happy life. You'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you. You're invited to hear new, see different, and feel more as Lisa shines the light on living.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Light on Living. I'm Light Coach Lisa, holistic nutritionist and life coach, helping to lighten the load of life's challenges. And one of the most challenging things can be our health and having that vitality and ease and excitement and feeling great in our bodies. But what happens when we don't, and we don't know why? And there's such a mysterious stuff going on inside. And I have to share that I am so selfishly excited for today's show, and especially today's guest, because I just love, one of my favorite things, as you guys all know, as anthologies, which is a lot of mini stories together, but it's also summits, when we get to really hear the advice and the stories from many people put together. So today's guest has done this numerous times, but she's created a most amazing summit, and it's all about, I'm going to share who she is and what she does, but we are talking about IBS and Sibo, which is everything to do with your intestines and your gut health, and really that's where health starts. So I'm so excited, so excited to introduce Shivan Sarna to today's show, and we have her on the line, and I'm going to share a little bit about her, but I do have to do a little housekeeping because I'm very grateful and thankful that this Light on Living is sponsored, and as we know, it's Stern Marketing Academy, and I just want to share that he knows that digital marketing can be very frustrating, and Daryl Stern makes it positive and simple. Become the influencer you were always meant to be and get Stern. Join the Stern Marketing Academy at sternmarketingacademy.com. And I thank goodness for marketing, because I would never have been able to get in contact with Shivan if it wasn't for all these wonderful platforms and the hard work that she does. So first of all, let me say hello and welcome, Shivan. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hi, Lisa. Your work is incredible. And I'm very excited to talk about IBS and SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and irritable bowel syndrome. Not sexy conditions, everybody.
No, but you know what? You're the person who has helped and brought help to people so that they can feel sexy. And I want to share who you are and how this all came about. So I'm going to read a little bit of your bio here. And I mean, it's even bigger than that, but I'm just going to start with it. But Shivan Sarna has played many roles in her life: daughter, wife, friend, yoga instructor, successful TV host, multi-million-dollar sales performer, and now a passionate SIBO and IBS health educator and advocate. She herself was diagnosed with SIBO, which, as she said, was small intestine bacterial overgrowth, in 2015 after a lifetime struggle with digestive issues. Shivan decided to turn her past pain and ultimate victory over SIBO into a tangible way to help others who were also suffering. From that life-affirming decision, Shivan made her vision a reality, and SIBO SOS, I love that, was born. More than just a summit, and it's an incredible summit, of the world's best gut health physicians, researchers, and functional medicine practitioners, SIBO SOS has become a movement, that's funny, a movement for awareness, advocacy, and patient empowerment. Oh, I'm so grateful to you. So many people suffer from this.
Lisa, your gratitude is deeply appreciated, and I do know that it's a topic that is important, but not everybody wants to talk about it. You know, I literally went to my nail tech for 2 years before we ended up having a discussion about digestive health, and she had SIBO. She had so many problems, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't we talk about this sooner? I'm so sorry. I had answers for her, and that's me, and I don't have any, shame issues around all this. It just hadn't come up. So I think it's a really important conversation. I'm glad to be here and share all this information with you guys. And if anybody has a bloating, I want you to stick around, because if you think, oh, SIBO, IBS, that's not for me, I'm going to tune out. Just, but wait, I have bloating, huh? What? Mm-hmm. Just know that you need to hear about this.
Yes, and you know what? That's what happened. So when I was listening to the summit, I signed up right away. I wanted to hear it, and I did try to do what I think everybody tries to do is like I just booked days off the calendar. Went no, listening to 7 of these in a row, and it's even for myself who just really dives in and digests these things. I couldn't. There was just so much, and it was so shocking. And I went, I didn't know. I can't imagine that this could be like if that, maybe that's where we could start, because I think a lot of people go IBS. Okay, it's about going to the bathroom or not going to the bathroom, but there's way more. And now we've got SIBO, which is I didn't even know. I was like, what is this? What's going on here? How can this be happening and we don't know? Can you help distinguish, not the difference, but just define them? Yeah.
Well, sure. Irritable bowel syndrome is associated with symptoms. So it is constipation, or diarrhea or alternating. And when you have SIBO, what you have is probably the underlying cause for most IBS. And SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it is when even good bacteria can get stuck in the small intestine. So the large intestine is your colon, the large intestine is where your fecal matter is pooping out and all that jazz, and the small intestine is where we're grabbing nutrition. And the small intestine is not designed to have bazillions of probiotics, bacteria in it, your microbiome. That is for primarily the large intestine. So by comparison, it's weird because the small intestine almost seems sterile by comparison. They're in there, but it's not the quantity in the large intestine. However, when you get an overgrowth of even good bacteria in the small intestine, it becomes like a mini brewery, and it ferments your food. And that bacteria depletes your body of nutrition. The fermentation leads to bloating, and a lot of different disorders can come from having this overgrowth. And, it's not a new condition in terms of discovery. It's just fortunately making its way out into the world with more awareness. And this is really important. Dr. Mark Pimentel is a Cedars-Sinai, and he's leading the way to help people understand what post-infectious IBS is. What that is a food poisoning. Down the road, or even immediately, you will often get SIBO and IBS because that food poisoning changes your body's antibodies because it's reacting like it should with its immune system to help fight off the infection. But what happens is there's a lining to the intestine that is called the interstitial cells of Cajal, or it's actually a whole sort of what's a good way of calling it? I call it sort of like an engineering system, non-medical, within your digestion that has to do with your migrating motor complex, which has to do with the way that food and fecal material move out of your gut. So that's an easy way of explaining it.
You brought up something really important, though. I just want to back up about food poisoning. So a lot of people, they'll go to a buffet. That's what I usually think of. They'll go to a restaurant and they won't feel well, and they'll either be barfy or they'll have to go to the bathroom, and then they go, oh, I must have food poisoning. How do we know how does one ever, that's that's common. I mean, I've said that before. I'm like, oh gosh, I must have food poisoning. How does that happen? And is it maybe not even food poisoning? Maybe it's actually SIBO, but then something through my system.
Okay, so that's a great question. So SIBO comes as a result of food poisoning. SIBO comes as the result. So if you have an adhesion, for example, in scar tissue, you can also get SIBO because think of it almost as a mechanical structural scenario for if you have an adhesion, which is like scar tissue from surgery. That can be a barrier to having the bacteria leave the small intestine in a timely fashion. When you have food poisoning, your body creates antibodies. Those antibodies can actually inhibit the ability of your intestines down the road to release that same bacteria. The migrating motor complex is a sweeping motion that happens, think of microperistalsis in the small intestine to get rid of any excess bacteria there. And when that is not working, you will keep bacteria there, even in small amounts, but it can proliferate and lead to small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, quite literally.
Oh, okay. So this little sweeping guy, imagine your house and you never swept, you just never, ever swept, and it would just accumulate. And so the sweeping, how does that get damaged? That's what you're saying, food poisoning could, or scar tissue could have damaged that, or?
Well, actually, scar tissue can come like an adhesion and turn into an adhesion from surgery. So I kind of switched gears a little bit, this thing that this can be a physical barrier. But then there's a lining to the small intestine, and there are cells there called the interstitial cells of Cajal, and they just call it ICC for short. And that helps with the coordination and the moving of the migrating motor complex, that's what I've been talking about. It's just like this microperistalsis, and that's the sweeping motion. And when your interstitial cells of Cajal are confused by these antibodies that your body has created in response to food poisoning, there's some confusion that happens there because those antibodies look a lot like other messengers that confuse the migrating motor complex. And when that happens, you will have a slowing down of that migrating motor complex, and you'll slow down your sweeping motion. And that's when not only will there be small bacteria in the small intestine that's accumulated, but it can also grow, right? So it gets fed and it can proliferate. And that's what you want to do, is you want to keep those levels low and down.
Wow. And it's so funny because we think, you know what, I'm just going to eat and let my body take care of what it needs to do. But there's a lot of times that we do need to kind of step in. So we've talked about bloating being the one symptom. So I want the listeners to be able to identify themselves here. Bloating's a big one. Bloating's a weird word because as soon as our tummies get a little bit big, we call that bloating. Is that the definition of bloating?
It's also known as distension. We're going to be like super medical about it. It's when you have a physical effect of your belly being bigger. But think about gas being trapped in a balloon, right? We think about gas and, farting and all that. That is also, when that gas doesn't come out, or when that gas is getting produced so quickly that your body can't keep up with releasing it. That is what I call bloating. And what so many people are like, I don't eat that much, but my belly's big. Okay, I know I have some fat, but this looks like I'm like 6 months pregnant. Mm-hmm. So that's you might be able to relate to and call bloating. And when you have that, it's very frustrating. And I remember being on a treadmill at my when I was working out at the gym with my trainer, and I lifted up my shirt to show him my tummy, and I was like, dude, okay, we've been doing cardio and for so long, and I am not a quote-unquote fat person. What is the deal? And he just looked at me and he goes, I don't know. Because he really didn't know. He'd never heard of SIBO. I had never heard of SIBO. What was going on? And then I would eat an apple and think, I'm doing so well. I'd eat fiber. I'm being a good patient, Mm-hmm. And it just made it worse, and it was frustrating. And then come to find out that fiber is what these little bacteria feed on, along with things like apple and garlic and onions can be very fermentable.
Yes.
And that's where the low FODMAP diet comes in as being a tool for people with IBS and SIBO. It reduces the fermentation of your food because you're reducing food that ferments easily.
I remember you were doing an interview and one of the ones came up about garlic, and I actually saw your whole body and face change, like, oh, no, not garlic. Kind of, it was like this immediate response, like, no, that's not a good food for me. Which is kind of,
it's confusing.
Yes, it's very confusing. And, it's funny, that's something that helped me. So I do have an allergy to onion, but I can eat garlic. However, in the past year, I would say I actually am having issues with garlic. And I thought, this is almost impossible. Like, no, I'm good with garlic, and garlic's good for me. But now to learn that it is a food. So it's so funny because I eat fermented food, and I teach people to eat fermented food, but it's a different kind. This is food that is fermenting and feeding those bacteria, and then they're getting big and gaseous. So can you share a bit? We've still got 3 minutes before commercial, so I can do this. Can we start hearing a little bit about what your experience was like all your life that you didn't know, and just what you were going through?
I, would see my girlfriend.
Oh. Oops. Hello? Did I lose her? Hello? Oh, goodness, I can add. Okay.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Enjoy passive income benefits while creating a cottage experience for others. From a relaxing getaway to connecting with nature, sitting around flickering campfire light, dipping in cool, refreshing waters, strengthening your body with biking, hiking, boating, and swimming. And you have the cottage that could be a part of all of those memories while earning you money. Financial abundance as a thank you for renting your cottage. Become a cottage rental owner today, safely and supported. RentCottage.com.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back, and we're both here online. A little technical difficulties, but we're ready to go. We have Shivan Sarna here with us, and so looking forward to somebody who's listening out there going, oh my gosh, I have these gut issues, and I'm so glad that Shivan's here to help us. And I want to share a little bit about her story, because I know that somebody's going to be able to recognize that they're suffering in this way and that there is help, because we're going to have her share with us, how do we test for this? What are the do's and the don'ts, and those little tiny things? And I even believe there's a little gift, a special gift at the end of the show that I'm really excited to share with everybody. So we're back, and if we could go into that, I just know there's people that will connect and go, that's me, that's what I was feeling or am feeling from your story.
Oh, sure, Lisa. The thing is that I thought everything was normal, and then when I figured out things weren't normal, I was in denial because, no one wants to talk about this. And when I was living in a sorority, I would see that my girlfriends would have different patterns than I did, and had different energy than I had. And, until I lived with other young women, did I realize that, wait a minute, this isn't normal. You weren't crazy, Shivan, when you used to think that, like, well, a little bit different. I don't have a flat stomach, even though I was skinny. And just, it was really interesting just to see other people and their patterns and their behavior, how they ate and how they could eat and drink all weekend long and not feel sick on Monday morning and that kind of thing. So this whole idea about SIBO and IBS is that if you have constipation or diarrhea or alternating constipation and diarrhea, or if you have low ferritin levels, which has to do with the reserves of iron in your blood, when you get tested for anemia, make sure they're testing your ferritin levels. When you feel like, gosh, I just feel weak and tired and fatigued, and the thing about SIBO is that it looks like a lot of other things. The symptoms of SIBO could be, gallbladder issues. It could be, a lot of things that are candida, other fungal infections in the gut.
Yes.
Yeah, overgrowth there. So if you have any of these things, and maybe you've been tested, maybe you've had a stool test, maybe you've had an organic acids test, and you keep looking and trying to find out what's going on. Maybe you've had a parasite test, and because that's also very similar to having the symptoms of SIBO. There is a gold standard for testing. There's some controversy around this testing, but I do rely on it, and I do think that it works enough, and it's called a lactulose 3-hour breath test. And if you want to find more about that, you can go to Aerodiagnostics Labs. Okay. That is on the web, Aerodiagnostics Labs. It's a mouthful. And they're out of Massachusetts, and they have tons of information there about breath testing. And what you do is you drink this lactulose solution. It's not lactose, okay, which is like the milk sugar. This is lactulose. It is a sugar, and it's what the bacteria will feed on. And then you breathe into these tubes every 20 minutes for 3 hours. And this happens after a prep diet of a 24-hour prep for this test. And what will happen is that it will be recorded as to how many bacteria or how many parts per million of hydrogen or methane are being released through your breath. That is because the bacteria that overgrows in the small intestine are either hydrogen-producing bacteria, methane-producing bacteria, or hydrogen sulfide-producing bacteria. And depending on what kind of bacteria you have an overgrowth of, you will produce certain amounts of parts per million of hydrogen or methane or hydrogen sulfide. And if you have methane, it's probably constipation dominant or mixed, constipation diarrhea. If you have hydrogen, you probably have diarrhea. So depending on those,
can this switch back and forth?
They can switch back and forth, yeah. It's very irritating because methane feeds off of the hydrogen. So once you get rid of the methane, you may still have hydrogen.
Right.
Because the methane bacteria feed on the hydrogen. It's very irritating, as I said, because just when you think a treatment has worked, wait a minute, it's switch. It's quite insidious, and that's why, relapse is really high for people with SIBO, and so some people even say that SIBO doesn't exist, which the research just does not show that to be the case. Otherwise, I'd be the first person going, hey, guys, I was wrong. SIBO doesn't exist. It's this. Or, heck, we just don't know. But I really do know that it exists, and the research does show it. And if people are having relapses after treatment, which I'll talk about in a second what the treatment is, it could be that they have other underlying causes other than maybe the post-infectious bacteria. Maybe they have, like I said before, adhesions or some physicality as to why the bacteria isn't being removed from the small intestine properly.
I've got a question about the breathing, because I remember listening to this about it, and also I did catch that interview. It was fabulous. It was a short and sweet one with 30 minutes. I want to remember the doctor's name, and he did a whole paper on proving that this does exist, and I loved it. It was a very helpful video. The breath.
Good.
When you say about the breath, they do the breath test. I find this interesting. I'm just throwing this question out there. There were people who just everybody has a breath, they're breathing, and they have a smell to them, but you can almost smell, pinpoint different kind of, not methane, I don't know if people walk around smelling like that, but can we tell if our own breath has changed, or, would that be something that would be a sign to us, like saying, wow, there's this smell or taste to me, and that might help us to know that something's switched or a little bit off?
I don't know. I would imagine, but I don't know about that being a full-on, I don't think that's a full-on way to diagnose whether or not you have SIBO, but I find that very interesting. Yeah, and here's a chemical train. Sometimes you can just, eat something funny and it doesn't move out of your gut quickly, and that can also, lead to a breath change. In terms of halitosis or whoo, man. Yes.
And also, too, before the testing, I also remember, and I thought this was a huge important factor that you guys shared during the summit, was if somebody thinks they're having a gluten issue, they usually stop and remove gluten from their diet. But this is not a good thing with testing. Is that correct?
Ooh, that's about the gluten test and that celiac test, and that has to do with Dr. Lisa Shaver, who was talking about that. It was wasn't that an electric conversation? That was really interesting, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's about celiac disease testing, and that you want to have some gluten in your diet when you do that test, so you can see if you're body is creating antibodies to it. But if you don't have the gluten in your body for super, super long periods of time and then you test, it might show that you are fine, but that's also because you haven't elicited an autoimmune antibody response to gluten because it hasn't been in your body for so long.
Right. So is there a kind of a prep or non-prep that we should do or shouldn't do for the breath, the lactulose 3-hour breath test? Is there something that we should maybe...
for that, yeah, there is a very specific set of things. You can't eat certain foods for the 12, so it's a 24-hour pre-test period, and for 12 hours it's a fast right before you take the breath test, and for 12 hours prior to that you can only eat like rice, eggs, meat, black coffee, black tea, I think.
People will be happy
so
about
that your body yeah, it's a pain, but it's just to really minimize feeding the bacteria so you get a true reading. But that's all written down when you get the breath test. It's really important not to veer from the test prep because it can certainly impact the results.
Okay.
That's a lot. No, it's so complicated, but it's really not. We have an algorithm that people can access, and we have it's very straightforward actually once you get the steps. But SIBO is a condition that requires self-care, that requires working with a doctor, and that does also require diet adjustments if you want to manage the symptoms by being on a low fermentable diet. It's an interesting condition because I used to think, I'll go to a doctor, I'll take a pill, and I'll get better. And that's just not the case with SIBO. You have to work a lot of it on your own, and you do need to get with your doctor so you can get some prescriptions sometimes, and even for the breath test, you need a script, and you need to educate yourself. It's a lot of self-education.
Okay, so this is helpful though, because it can be. So I don't want to use the word cure because you said it's a condition, but are you fixed, balanced, maintenance, cured?
That's a great question. I can manage my symptoms and I can manage my condition. So it is a chronic condition for me because I do have the antibody that is the result of post-infectious IBS, that is the result of food poisoning.
Oh, so my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay, wait. So did you have food poisoning, and then that's where this, like, all those years ago, and then?
Yeah, I did. But I had a lot of food poisoning. I also have old Lyme and old Epstein-Barr. But I did do the test. There's a test called the IBS Smart Test, ibssmarttest.com, and that's a test that can show you if you have the antibody, and sure enough, there it was, which was a relief to me. You know, it's weird when you get a diagnosis and when you're relieved, right, Lisa?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You're like, thank God I'm not crazy, because even on that interview that I was just talking about, who was that doctor's name? My goodness, he's a very sweet fellow who wrote the paper on proving that it exists. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Dr. Mark Pimentel. Oh, he's leading the way at Cedars-Sinai. He's amazing.
Yes, and he actually even talked about how we can literally, and we know this energetically, our mind can really make it worse. And so, like as you said, having the diagnosis, knowing that we can calm the mind. It's okay. I'm not insane. I'm not just being fearful of every food and then creating this bloating and creating this bowel issue. This is an actual, because we're so powerful. Like we really, it's an attitude thing as well, and the emotions. It's important to feel supported.
Yes, it is. It's very important to feel supported. It's very important to get the information that you need so that you can take the right steps. So I want to talk about treatment, if I could, for just a second, because we were just talking about those sad problems, but there are some things that you can do, like eating a low fermentable diet, and you can research the SIBO-specific food guide. But there's also antibiotics that can take care of reducing the load of the bacteria by 20 to 30 million parts per million. When we were talking about the breath test, let's say you come in at a 70 hydrogen. Once you do the rounds of the antibiotics I'm about to talk about, often it comes down by 20 to 30 parts per million. And what's interesting is that, again, I thought I would take a round of antibiotics and I'd be fixed, but this is like stages. You can do 5 to 6 rounds of these antibiotics, and which sounds totally counterproductive and totally counterintuitive, but it has been shown to help. Obviously, you need to speak with your medical professional, but there's a drug called Xifaxan, or also known as rifaximin, and if you take that, if you have hydrogen-producing bacteria, that over a 2-week course has been shown to reduce the bacterial load. And then there's also, if you have hydrogen-producing bacteria. If you have methane-producing bacteria, then you want to take a combination of rifaximin with something else, including maybe neomycin or metronidazole. I'm not a doctor, guys, but these are just things for you to talk about with your doctor. But also, there is an herbal route to go, and you could do 30 days, like maybe 4 to 6 weeks of the herbal protocol that also shows to be about as effective, if not more so, than taking the rifaximin. But it's nice to know you do have an approach other than a prescription.
Yes, I like that. Actually, about the herbal root. So if somebody, say me, and I'm thinking, you know what, I don't know, and I don't really want to go get the test and everything. However, I mean, would the natural root hurt me if I decided to do it regardless? Or should I not mess around?
Okay, great question. That's a great question. Here's how it can hurt. Okay.
Oh.
Let's say these symptoms are actually of ovarian cancer, because some of these symptoms are similar. Bloating can be ovarian cancer. And by the time ovarian cancer is very hard to find. It's usually really far along in the stages by the time you have some of these symptoms. But it's something that you need to know that your symptoms are not the result of. So I personally am a big fan of testing, because when you test, when you test, you can, really accurately treat. So if you let it go for too long, and especially if it doesn't get resolved after maybe 4 to 6 weeks of herbals, there's something you really need to find what they call the underlying cause, so that you can eliminate some things and treat other things that you didn't know were an issue. And I'm not saying everything's ovarian cancer. I'm trying to scare everybody a little bit. That's the point of where they'll take it seriously. And then, of course, it's very far and few between that actually is the case, but it has been known to happen, that somebody thought they had SIBO, got treated, didn't move along any other course of action, and it turned out it was actually cancer.
I got you. You know, it's funny. I titled this episode right here, Assumptions to Accuracies. And I actually got that. I was inspired because when I was watching that interview you did with the doctor, and you just said that when you test, you know. And I love that you're pro testing. Oh, that's funny, I didn't mean that, but pro for testing, because that really is something that these symptoms are so mild or crazy, or something like a slight change, and we really do have to pay more attention to our bowels and things like that. Now, you have gone along, and I know I want to share this right now with everybody, because you have a cookbook, a recipe book.
We do have a recipe book that's free to download at SIBOSOS.com. Did you like it? Did you find it helpful?
I haven't got to try anything yet, because I just got to and I saw it and I went, oh my gosh, this is so. Oh, I love food. I mean, I love feeling good when I eat food. So I'm excited to put this to the test, quote unquote, because I think it would help anyways. Like, just the recipes themselves, they're healthy, and so having an intention with it to reduce this crazy. Well, it's just funny thinking that there's so many bacteria in our body having their own life, and they're just hanging out waiting for it to do these things. Now, with the there's so many different testing and things like that, so I'm glad that that's available. And when we go ahead and do these tests, this isn't going to. How could it be so life changing? Like, if you could just share, like, how has it just changed your life in the way that when you're managing it?
Well, getting your vitality back, because the bacteria often consumes the food, the nutrients that normally you would be consuming, but they get to it first. So a lot of times there is nutrition depletion. That obviously we want to avoid that at all costs. So you can actually, consume the nutrients you need and have more energy. So there's a lot of implications to not having the proper food consumption. You can eat a perfectly good diet, but if your body isn't bioavailable absorbing it, there's a better way to say that, but I think you get the drift, then you're not reaping the benefit of the nutrition you are taking, even if it's a holistic and organic and If you're, doing everything right, but your body isn't able to absorb it properly, you got a problem.
The thing is, I actually love that you said that, because a lot of people can think, yes, I'm doing everything perfectly and smartly and holistically, and if you're not accessing those things, and I love that you mentioned earlier about the energy. You're feeling drained, and this could also have people check their ferritin levels, if they're thinking anemia is that, because it might not be that you need to just consume more of you may need to correct the issue at hand. What about people who have had some small bowel reconstruction or removal? Can they still come back from this?
So I'm not a doctor that would be, and that's like a huge medical question right there. However, I have heard of people having recurrent Sibo if they've had like gastric bypass surgery and other really serious surgeries, that they will have constant Sibo. And what can happen is you may do a prophylactic dose of rifaximin, or you may do some rounds of herbal antibiotics just to keep the bacterial load low.
Got you. Okay. Actually, that's what I did want to circle back to the antibiotic, because some people are like, no, I don't want to take any. Like, I'm scared. Like, we've been taught so much, like, don't take antibiotics or don't go on them for a long time. Is this something that could, because Candida, so we take their antibiotics, is that going to interfere with Candida, or can it still? This one doesn't touch that.
So Candida is a fungal overgrowth, and sure, this is interesting about rifaximin and Xifaxan. People we're used to, and first of all, take an antibiotic, in my personal opinion, if it's going to save your life. Hello, penicillin, how you doing? I will be, obviously. However, for something like this, you're talking about eradicating the microbiome, which is the, microbiota, which is all the good bacteria throughout the intestines. Interestingly enough, that Xifaxan or rifaximin is known to actually stay in the small intestine, which is fascinating because I never even thought of a antibiotic staying in a certain place within the gut. But studies have shown that it does stay in the small intestine. So you're not at risk, allegedly, of, wiping out your entire microbiota or your microbiome.
That is fascinating. And on that note, we are going to have to sneak away to commercial, and we're prepared for it this time, yippee. And when we come back, a little bit more on all the stuff that we can help you identify it and recover and manage. We're back.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
So I'm a cat. And I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
call. We are here, and I'm so happy to be speaking with Shivan Sarna and really talking about overall health because it starts in the gut. And as we talk about IBS and SIBO and all those things, I feel like I have like 20 million questions still. But what I want to do, first of all, ask you, Shivan, is how common is this?
Oh my gosh. There's some statistics that say it's 1 out of every 6 people. So this is the most common gut health issue on the planet.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Like, that is crazy that it's not. And I wasn't expecting that answer, but I just, wow. I almost feel like everybody should just go out. We should run clinics. We just should pop up clinics for SIBO testing and just have them show up everywhere.
Ooh, I love that idea. I love that idea.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? There's a good one. I want to talk about, okay, so I know some of this, like we talked about food poisoning being a possible thing or adhesions and things like that. When someone takes medications, for a current condition, specifically low acids, low stomach acids and things, they think they have high, Tums. Let's say they take Tums or something like that. Can that be a huge cause over time?
So that's a great question. Some people say that the use of PPIs or proton pump inhibitors can lead to SIBO. Other people say that they don't see a correlation, so there's a little controversy there. But what I do think is that, and what I do know is that when you have acid in the stomach, it does help to kill some of the bacteria. So you're sort of starting out with a lower load to begin with, going through the tract. So it's just something for you to consider with that perspective is that, less bacteria in general probably will mean less bacterial overgrowth in general. But then that leads to, well, should you take a probiotic when you have SIBO and IBS? And there are studies that show that some probiotics can actually be helpful. So that is interesting because a lot of people will say, oh, I need to take this probiotic. I did a stool test. I'm low in this strain. And so I need to take this probiotic with this strain. And I have never heard of somebody actually taking a strain that they were low in, doing a stool test after that, and having that strain be present again. Yeah. It's a really complicated environment. So it has to do with the balance and the relationships between the different bacterias. But there are, so maybe like you could get good bacteria to help get rid of the bad bacteria because probiotics do create antibiotics. That's why they're called probiotics in the gut. So it's really fascinating.
I love that you use those words. I have to repeat that for everybody. It is a complicated environment, and it's so beautiful that you said it's about balance and the relationship because each of those bacteria, they're just chatting with the other one, and we don't know who's going to fall in love and who's going to break up down there, right? And I want to ask you because I have so much fermented food, like in a good way, like the raw fermented food in my life. It's pretty much a staple in everything I eat all day long. And I prefer, just my feeling of it, I prefer to take that over a capsule, let's say, or the powder, like a supplement. Is there studies or do you have a preference over eating fermented foods versus taking supplements?
So if you have SIBO, a lot of people say, and I agree with this from my own personal experience, that is, that eating fermented foods while you have SIBO is probably not a good idea because you're already so fermented. But once you get a negative breath test and once you heal the gut lining, because SIBO does cause leaky gut and helps to create spaces in the junctures of the small intestine and the large intestine. Does it make leaky gut in the large intestine? I'm going to at least say I know it does in the small intestine. It's sort of like overloading what's already full up of fermented foods. But remember, fermented foods does help create probiotics, microbiota, helps your microbiome. So I think really for fermented foods with patients with SIBO, it's about timing.
Yes. Okay.
And getting started with maybe like slowly but surely and after you have a negative breath test.
Right. And only maybe one at a time because I know for myself, I cannot do kombucha. It does not do well in my body at all, but I can do sauerkraut and kimchi and all those other things, but kefir. But yeah, that something to do with the mushroom? I don't know. Maybe it's just, who knows? But I wonder if that's because it is creating a certain load or a certain reaction that's already there and going, no, that's too much. That's too much for me.
Too much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because we won't run out of time, so we have lots. We still have 10 more minutes. However, if we were to, because you have interviewed just the most, wow, you've interviewed so many people, and there's so many different, just when you think, oh, yeah, there's an hour, I've listened to that, now I know all about it. No, you could listen to hours and hours from each different doctor and researcher. If somebody was just starting out and really recognizing something, and I thought, okay, I'd like to get some more information. So should they, let them go to your site, first of all, so we'll direct them there. But what are the steps they really start with, and who are the people that you could direct them to?
Well, you can go to the Sibo SOS Summit 1, Sibo SOS Summit 2, and look, even if you don't purchase it, there's a list of speakers, and you can also go to the IBS and Sibo SOS Summit. And you can see the list of speakers, and a lot of them do telemedicine. And literally Google their names, find out the clinics where they work in their practices, and a lot of them do telemedicine via Skype.
Oh, that's so neat. Okay. Do you have some of your favorite stories that people have turned around, other than yours?
Oh my gosh, people have emailed us with incredible results and incredible stories. One gentleman found out that from listening to one of the interviews that he actually had Parkinson's and didn't know it.
Oh my
But
gosh.
the interview made him go and get tested. That was really rewarding for us. Very, very rewarding. People who have not had, their lives back in years and years and decades, just learning what to do next. The relief of knowing what to do next, the right action in the right time is so important. And that always leads to saving you time, stress, and money. I say it's a little mantra I have. So just even knowing what to do next, even if you don't get it resolved in the next 2 weeks, okay, that's, but you're moving yourself forward with the right action. Because of a negative breast test, actually a false negative, I actually lost 1.5 years because I thought, oh, it's not SIBO. Oh, well, all right, I guess it's not SIBO. And it turned out it was SIBO, but the person who interpreted that test didn't know how to interpret the test properly, and therefore I got set back so far because I lost 1.5 years of moving forward with treatment.
Right. Okay, so that would be a big concern. So right now somebody's like, oh, great, I'm going to go, and that'll be me. I'll get the one who's not reading it correctly. How can we ensure, can we read it? Or can we read it ourselves, or is there a way to double check?
I would definitely make sure you get the graph of the test result, and often that is the way good labs show you. They give you the test result. But if you're doing it at a doctor's office and they say, oh, you're negative, ask to see the graph of the test. Ask to literally look at the test result, not just the word negative or positive, because that's what happened to me. The doctor came back and said, oh, it's negative. And I was like, oh, it's negative. And my nutritionist and my new GI doctor were like, can we see that test result? Can we see the graph? And I finally got the guts to reach out to the old doctor who I had left their practice because I felt like something was wrong. And once they looked at it, they were like, Shivan, you need to redo this test because just from our eyes, we're saying I would call this a positive test.
See that? Yeah. And we don't want anybody to lose time because it's every day. If you don't feel well, it's a long day and it's a sad life like that. And you become afraid of food and then the social aspects around it. Do you find that you follow the diet now just to maintain it? Is that become your diet?
Yeah, that is my diet. I do eat low FODMAP. I do eat according to the SIBO specific food guide, but I can eat a half an avocado, whereas the SIBO specific food guide says only 1/4 cup of avocado. Mm-hmm. You need to find out what works for you. And one of the most frustrating things about this is that you will hear, especially about the diet and such, everybody's different. And like at some point, you're just so over that. Like we know everybody's different, but I want to know if I can eat whatever. And, then we start to get questions which are the same question, but you didn't like the answer to it. And you just keep getting that same question over and over again. But here's the deal. If you do need to experiment, and look, maybe I can't eat garlic today. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to eat garlic in a year. You just have to keep healing your gut and moving forward and do it with a big fat dose of resilience, which takes a lot of energy.
Oh, I love that. Big fat that dose of resilience. That's actually a really good word too. And I think that's like there's not just hope. There actually is solutions and places to go and learn about this. And you know what? And I think that's the big thing. I know right now, I think my biggest thing is not only am I thinking of clients, but I'm thinking of friends and family members who have shared those stories like, ooh, you know, I can't eat that, or I don't feel comfortable when I eat this, or they have headaches, or because bacterial overgrowth can cause, we talked about the energy, we talked about bloating, talked about bowels, but it's even to do with migraines, headaches, and there's so many weird like symptoms that are just everyday things that people think are normal life, like, oh, I'm stressed. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you, stress. Because stress, I mean, we change our body chemistry. Yeah, how much does that play a role in this?
I think it plays a big role. The parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, when those are out of balance, your whole digestive system is going to be out of balance. Yeah. If you've ever, you know, been in a situation where stress, and then like taking a test and all of a sudden the test is over, woo, and then you could finally go poop. This is an example of your central nervous system responding. So if your parasympathetic nervous system, so there's two nervous systems, right? There's the sympathetic and there's the parasympathetic. And sympathetic is the one associated with fight and flight and stress. And the reason why I used to never be able to remember the difference, Lisa, and maybe you heard me say this in one of the interviews, how can I tell the difference between which one's which? Well, when I am stressed, I need you to have sympathy for me. So that's the one that's called sympathetic. And then parasympathetic is the one that is rest and digest. This is when after a yoga class, you're all blissed out. This is when you feel peaceful and you remember you have a sense of humor and you're amorous and, you know, things are still and good and you just had acupuncture and you're like in that zone of like yumminess. That is when your parasympathetic nervous system is doing so well. So that's when stress disrupts the peace. And when you have less stress and you are more inclined to parasympathetic than sympathetic, then your digestion absolutely works better. When you are in fight or flight, of course, that is going to jeopardize your digestive system.
So that's what I really want people to hear, that piece. So thank you for going to the detail. And also, do you still teach yoga?
Oh, I meditate every day and I do yoga, but I haven't taught in a while simply because I've been distracted with this project.
And with this project, where is this project going? Where and how can people really support it and jump on board? And what's your vision?
Oh, you're so sweet to ask. Well, go to SiboSOS.com. That's SIBOSOS.com. And you can see all of our ongoing master classes that people can get in on, even if it was recorded a while ago, like last year. These are some of the most popular speakers from the summits where they do a PowerPoint presentation, usually reserved for medical conferences. And then we have recorded a 2-hour Q&A afterwards, which were epic and awesome. Then we also have a course that's running called the Sibo Recovery Roadmap course. And that is something, you can purchase, and it takes you through a 28-day protocol of how to manage your Sibo, including all the tests, studies to take to your doctor. It's extraordinarily comprehensive and really exactly what I wish I had had in the beginning.
And would somebody need to do the testing and the breath test before jumping onto that 28-day, or could they do that at a time? No.
They can go ahead and I would suggest actually getting started so you have a roadmap and a game plan, and then you can get tested. And their lab information is there and everything too.
Oh, wow. Okay. Actually, oh my gosh. Now I kind of want to do it because you never know what's doing what. And I love that we said that. When you test, you know. So, well, I want to give a big, big thank you for not only your time, but all you have done coming after this and really turning your life experience and your pain and then your recovery and sharing that with people so they can have it too. A huge thank you to you.
Oh, you're very, very welcome, Lisa. And thanks for having me on this incredible interview. I love talking about it and helping people. And I hope if anyone has more questions, they will find us at SiboSOS.com.
Yes, and on that note, to everybody, please join that Facebook, the Facebook group. I have myself. I put my request in. I'm hoping that she'll accept me. But there you go. And what we can do across all social media will be sharing the replay of this. If you just want to hear, there's a little tidbit in here, because all it takes is for you to recognize that you are uncomfortable and you're in pain, and you know that there's help. So thank you everybody for listening and joining with us on this and finding out. Let's have more vitality. I love that. Let's have vitality and health and good parasympathetic systems. We like that. So everybody, thank you so much. We'll catch you next Monday. And thank you, Shivan. I'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.